Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to launch a web server using various AWS services, auto scaling, load balancer, Route 53, and certificate manager. Let's go through our model diagram here. The auto scaling will launch instances based on incoming traffic. If traffic is high, it's going to launch more instances to handle the traffic. And if traffic goes down, it will terminate some of the instances. Now, the application load balancer is responsible for distributing incoming traffic to the EC2 instances or our web servers. Now, Route 53, we are going to request a domain name, and also it will help us create a record. Now we are going to request a certificate which will help us to securely access our web servers. So at the end of the day, we want to have something like, we want to be able to type in app.tech with so4.com to access our web server securely. So that's what we are going to do in today's video. Now, this involves a couple of steps. We need a VPC security group and key, which I've already created. We will start by creating the auto scaling group, and in that we will be asked to create a launch template. We will also be asked to create a load balancer and a target group. Once that is done, we can use the URL of the load balancer to access our web application. Now, we'll also request a certificate and create a record in Route 53. And finally, we are going to do a stress test to check if our auto scaling group is working. So let's jump onto the console. So I'm on my AWS console, and I will start by going to the VPC. I already have my VPC created. If you don't have a VPC already, you can go to VPC, click VPC and more, and then you can create a VPC from here. So that's my VPC. It has 2 public subnets in the VPC. And by the way, I'm working in the region US West 1. Let's go back to EC2. I also have a security group and key. So this is my security group that I'm going to use. I open port 22 so that I can SSH into one of the instances. I install the package to do the stress test. I also open port 80 for HTTP traffic, and also open port 443 for HTTPS traffic. I also have a key created. So now let's go ahead and get started. So under EC2, I'll scroll down to auto scaling group. We are going to create auto scaling group. So let's give it a name. By the way, I have a video on auto scaling group only, and I also have another video for load balancer only. So if you get confused, you can check those videos in the description, and then you can come back and continue here. So demo ASG. Now we've been asked to select our launch template. I already have a launch template here, but if you don't have one, you can click on create and then give your launch template a name. Let's say example. I'll copy that name and put here. Then I'll scroll down. I'll click on quick start. So I'll select my AMI, which is the Ubuntu image. Then I'll scroll down to instant type. I'm going to select the free one. Here you specify your key for the launch template. And then for your networking, do not include subnet in the launch template, right? So if you are setting up a launch template for auto scaling, do not include subnet. So I'm selecting a key. So this is my key. So that's my security group. And then I'll scroll down. I'll leave the rest of the settings default, and then I'll click on advanced details and then scroll all the way down, and then you include your user data. So this is we are installing Apache, and then we are creating a simple web page, right? And then you can go ahead and create a launch template, right? So that's our launch template. So we can go back, click on refresh, and then we can use the launch template that we just created. So let's move on. Next, then here you select your VPC. So make sure we are selecting our VPC. This region has 2 subnets. So these are the 2 subnets for our VPC. So we are selecting them. So for auto scaling, you need 2 or more availability zones. So you can select more here if you have more. Then here we need to attach our load balancer. I don't have a load balancer created, so let's go ahead and create one. Click on attach a new load balancer, and then we are using application load balancer, and then we are going to give it a name. So I'll add LB here for the name, and it should be internet facing. That's our VPC. Those are the 2 public subnets we have. And then for the target group, I'm going to click on new target group. So this will create a new target group for us. And then after that, we will go ahead and change the security group. And I'll scroll down. So make sure you click on this checkbox so that the load balancer will perform a health check, so that if any of the instances is not healthy, it will terminate and launch a new one. That's about it. Let's click on next. So here we have a desired capacity. How many instances do we want to be running? So I'll leave that as 1. I'll leave the minimum as 1 and the max. Going to set the max to be 5. So here we are going to set up a scaling policy. Under what circumstance do we want the auto scaling to launch new instances? So here I'm going to use the CPU utilization. So I'm going to say that if my CPU utilization is more than, let's say, 20%, then it should launch more instances to handle the incoming traffic. Then I'll keep this default, and then I'll go ahead. Then I'll click on next, next. And then I'll go ahead and create the auto scaling group. So it is still provisioning. If I go back to EC2 and I go down to load balancer here, it's going to take about a minute or 2 for the load balancer to come up. So I'll come back and continue when everything is up. Our load balancer is active, so let's move on. So let's select our load balancer here, and we can see some of the properties of our load balancer here in details. So let's go to listeners, so we can see we have one listener. So I'll go to security group and make sure I have the proper security group here. Sometimes it will pick up the default security group, so you have to go to edit and change it if it's not having your security group. So let's go to our target group. So we created this target group, right? This is the target group we created, and then this is our auto scaling group. So let's click on it, then check what's going on here. So we have one activity, going on. So we can also see some of the properties. So we have this one instance here. So let's click on that. So we have one instance running. So we told the auto scaling group to launch one instance, and that's what we are seeing here. Let's see if we can connect to this instance. Okay, we can connect. It looks like we don't have no public IP address assigned. So let's go back to EC2. It looks like when we were creating the launch template, we did not assign public IP. So let's go to, so click on it. This is the example we are using. I'll go to actions, I'll go to modify template and create new. Let's see. Let me give it a name. Example -1. Let's move down. Hopefully it has all of our previous settings. Okay, it does. So the only thing we need to change here is the network. So I'll go to advanced network. So we need to attach a network interface, right? So we already have our security group here. So we have to go here and enable auto assign public IP. I think, yeah, that's the only thing we need to change. So I'll go ahead and create. I'll go ahead and create new. So the one we are using right now is the default one, and we just created a new one. So that'll be number 2. So let's go ahead and click on that, and then go to actions and set default version. So default version is number 2, example -1. So that's what we want to set here. So that's our new launch template. So let's go back to our instance. So I'm going to terminate this instance that is currently running without IPv, without public IP. So we updated the launch template and we terminated the instance that was running without public IP. So the auto scaling group is launching a new one because we told it to have one instance running at each time. So let's go ahead. Okay, so this is the new one coming up, and we see that it has public IP assigned. So let's wait for it to finish initializing, and then we'll continue. So our new instance is up. So let's go ahead and copy the public IP and see if we can view our web page. Okay, so we can see our web page, and let's also see if we can connect to that instance. Okay, so now we have public IP, so we are able to connect to our instance via SSH. All right, so here let's scroll down. Let's go to our load balancer here. Click on load balancer. So we are going to use the DNS name of the load balancer to access our web application, so that any traffic, so that's our load balancer here accessing our web application. Up to this point, we can access our web server using the DNS of the load balancer, but that's not what we want. We want to have a domain name tech with so4.com. We want to type that in the web browser to access our web application. So let's move on to Route 53. So here I'm going to search Route 53. I'll click on that. So here I have one hosted zone. If you don't have a domain name already, you can go to domain registration, then go to register domain, and then you type in the domain name you want. All right, so once you type in the domain name, if you type in your domain name, then you search, the name must not be used by anyone, right? So these are the names available here. So if you want any of them, then you click on select, then you can pay for it. So back to my Route 53. So I have one hosted zone. So before we create a record, let's go ahead and request a certificate. So you can search ACM and then click on certificate manager and then request a certificate. So you got to give the certificate a name, which will be your domain name. If you are not sure all the domain names you want to create, you can do something like star. So this will take care of, for example, in the future, if I want to do app.so4.com, I'll be able to do that. If I want to do www.techwithso4.com, I'll be able to do that. So that will take care of all the subdomains. So go ahead and do a request. Let's view certificate. So the status is in pending validation. And then we'll go to create a record in Route 53. And then we'll go ahead and click on create record. Okay, so the records has been successfully created in Route 53. Let's go ahead and reload this page. Okay. So now we can see that the status says the certificate has been issued. So let me open a new tab and go to Route 53. And then click on Route 53. So I have one hosted zone here. If you click on that, so you're gonna see the record that was just created. All right, so let's go ahead and create a record. So I'm going to create a record for app, and then I'll toggle alias So we are creating the record for application load balancer. Then we will select our region, my region US West 1, and then this is my application load balancer. So click on create. While this is creating, let's go back to EC2 and then go to our application, go to our load balancer. So here we have only one listener rule. We have to create a new one. So we are creating the rule for HTTPS, which is for secure connection. That's my target group. We selected our target group, and then we come all the way down to certificate manager. So we select here, and then we select our certificate that we just created. Then I will leave the rest optional. And then we click on add. So we have added a rule. So let me go back to Route 53. So this is so let's see if we can view the web page. Right, so now we can view the web page using the domain that we just created, which is app.techwithso4.com. So that's the domain that we just created. Now there's one more thing we need to do here. So we got to go back to our load balancer again. Let's go to our load balancer and then go to the listeners. Now we have to modify the HTTP listener. So we're going to select that and scroll. Let's see. We're going to edit the rule. We go back. Okay, so let's go to actions, edit rule. So we want to modify the HTTP rule. So we said that any traffic coming on port 80 should be redirected to HTTPS, right, which is port 443. And then we'll save that. Right. So now we've created our domain name. So if I try to access this page using HTTP, see, so the traffic has been forwarded to HTTPS, which is the secure connection. So if you look here, you can see that this connection is secure. Right, we can view our certificate. Now, if we go back to our diagram here, let's recap what we've done so far. We created an auto-scaling group, which will take care of launching EC2 instances. We have our application load balancer, which will distribute traffic across the different servers or the instances. We requested a certificate and create a record in Route 53 for our domain name. So now we can go to the browser and type app.techwithso4.com, and then we'll be able to access our web application. So we're going to do a stress test and see if the auto scaling is working. Right, so back in our back on the console, I'll go to my 2. So right now we have only one server running. So let's connect to that instance. So this code will update our server and then install the stress package. And then we'll go back and copy the next code here. So this code will run for 240 seconds, which is about 4 minutes, which will put stress on the CPU of the running instance so that the auto scaling will be triggered to create more instances. So right now we can see only one instance running. So after a minute or two, we'll come back and check to see if the auto scaling has launched more instances. Okay, so the stress test has completed. So let's go back and check our instances and see how many instances. So we see that the auto scaling group had launched more instances to handle the incoming traffic, right? So we can see that now 5 more instances are running. If you go to our auto scaling group, so that's the minimum, and we set the max to 5, and now our desired is 5. That means we need 5 instances to handle whatever traffic that is coming in at this point. Okay, so now I can go to my website app.techwithso4.com. So as I refresh the page, I want you to pay attention to the IP addresses. It's gonna keep changing for each instance that the traffic is hitting. So if I refresh, see it has changed. It has changed again. So as people access our website, the load balancer is going to distribute the traffic across the different instances that we have or to the different web servers, right? If traffic goes down, the load balancer is going to terminate some of the instances so that we can save money. Now, if we go back to our diagram here, let's recap what we've done so far. We created an auto scaling group which will take care of launching EC2 instances. We have our application load balancer, which will distribute traffic across the different servers or the instances. We requested a certificate and create a record in Route 53 for our domain name. So now we can go to the browser and type app.techwithso4.com, and then we'll be able to access our web application. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment.